Hey y'all, Jason Kissel here. We're going to talk about games in the classroom. So I wish it was like Scrabble and Monopoly, but we're going to talk about these different websites that offer games. I'm sure a lot of us have probably seen from colleagues or in some teacher training or just online in the last year. A lot of these websites, right? And I'm going to kind of evaluate them in my lens of what's most useful for student learning. I need to make sure I got my notes here. I didn't prepare any slides, so I'm like, all right, got to make sure I can talk about what I want to talk about. So I'm going to kind of run through a few of these. I'm probably not going to give the nuts and bolts of how to create quizzes or lessons or activities or homework or whatever they want to call it within their platform on each one. That would take quite a long time and not be terribly useful, I think. Most times I feel like the best way to figure out one of these things is to find something that's already an example on there, run it with your class, and see how it goes. That's kind of my methodology with all of these. So um, let's jump into it. Let's start. So I'm going to start with the one that I was probably the most privy to when I was teaching, which is quizzes. All right, so we're going to jump here, and this document's linked in the video description below. So if you can get all these links back, right? So with quizzes, you log in with your Google account. They've actually in the last year completely changed everything. So I used to have this like bank of memes that I created. I walked around my school and took pictures of everybody, and I made memes for when you're right or wrong. That's one of the aspects of quizzes I love is they let you put memes up. Um, that's gone, which is really unfortunate. But that's all right. So when they revamped their whole website, added them and a bunch of stuff for distance learning, it looks like all the stuff that I had before was deleted. So something to consider for sure when you're putting a lot of work into stuff on these websites. So I'm a big Explore guy, and let's say I want to find something about Ohio history. And you have to vet this stuff, right? Like anybody can put a quiz up here. The answers might not necessarily be correct. You definitely want to take the quiz yourself and try it before you just pick something and say, okay, this is going to be good, right? So let's just pick this first one. It has been played 474 times. And again, like what I would do here is I would probably try to start a live quiz. If I've never done this before, the most typical way quizzes works is you start a live quiz, kids log on with the code, they put their name in, and it's a quiz game that is timed, but there's no timer for the whole class, right? So it's timed on their own device, and they're getting points, and there's a leaderboard and things. But you can see there's a couple different settings here that I really like. So I'm going to go with the classic. I'm not an instructor paced kind of guy on quizzes. I'm going to go with classic here. You can attach your Google Classroom classes as well. You can let them take the quiz more than once. I'm usually at one time, and then we can kind of talk about this. All right. So I like to kind of debrief the questions that were most missed or something like that afterwards. Um, this kind of helps if you have kids with that pick names, that aren't appropriate. You can have them generate quizzes names, but you can easily kick people out in that waiting screen, so it's not a big deal. And then you can shuffle the answers, you can shuffle the questions, which to me is great. So even if there's two kids working right next to each other and they're both on Chromebooks, they won't have the same question most likely. And even if they did have the same question by chance, their answers aren't going to look the same. So unlike some other platforms where it's really easy to just watch somebody else and click the same thing as them, this one is a little bit more dependent on the kid. I found the kids to really enjoy quizzes in terms of like instead of giving a worksheet of 10 questions, we're going to do a quizzes of 10 questions and then we're going to go over them. Maybe that means we're going to put all 10 of the problems on the board afterwards and talk about them. Maybe we're going to talk about the most missed ones, something like that. But this will give an opportunity to practice whatever skill we're trying to learn with a game, and then maybe give some type of silly reward at the end of the day. Sticker is my favorite reward. I love stickers. All right, so in its essence, that's what it is. Kids are working at their own pace. You can set a timer for each question or not set it timed at all. Um, Big fan of quizzes. They have also got this lesson view where you can create basically slides. It's very akin to Pear Deck. You create slides, and then you can put questions into the slides, and people can follow along with a class code or a link. So it's kind of cool. That's something they've added in the last year. And I've never used that with kids, so I can't speak on that. But I liked using this quiz in the classic view every once in a while, right? Like I wouldn't have done it every week. It kind of loses its luster if you do it all the time, right? And it's nice to kind of mix up these games a little bit. So maybe we do quizzes a few times, and we do some of these other ones a few times as well. It's really easy for kids because you can just give them a link, or you can give them a code, and they can just get going right away. There's not really much setup for them. So all of these games. All right, so that's quizzes. I like quizzes. I'm a big fan. Kahoot's definitely the most popular one, so I probably won't talk about it a ton. But let's just talk about how and when Kahoot makes sense and why it makes sense for student learning or doesn't. Kahoot was the first one, like the first one of these games. It was a big rage, 5 or 6 years ago. People were all about Kahoot. They loved it and they thought it was amazing. And then I realized every time I did it in my classroom, kids just clicked as fast as they could. They got all the answers wrong. The overall percentage of answers right was always under 50%. It was never a like introducing a topic, so it should have been way higher. And I kind of moved away from Kahoot because of that. I think you can still use Kahoot really strategically. The hard thing about Kahoot is kids are just racing each other, and I don't love that. So they luckily they've got different versions of it, and the classic version is still there, but I would probably go towards more student paced version, which they have in here. If you want to, let me just find something to make here. Let's pick and they've got a huge library, but again, you want to vet this stuff, right? I mean, they've got like stuff very not related to content, which could be really fun for kids, do a little Marvel quiz. But dang, I don't know what happened there. My camera, something weird. My whole computer just shut down and restarted. All right, so what I was trying to get at here is this teaches the standard, the typical, right? Like it's live and everybody's racing against the clock and all that. But I like this assign for self-paced learning. Even says for self-paced learning, it doesn't mean like they have to do it at home, right? Like you can still do that as a station or something like that in your classroom. So I'm a big fan of that. And then I also really like the practice right here. If you want to kind of see how it works on its own, it's really easy to just hit practice there. So I don't know, with Kahoot, I struggle with this. I still probably struggle with this live mode more than maybe I should. And maybe there's some great use cases out there, but I really like the self-paced learning probably more. Um, Quick aside before I keep going, all of these, if you're going to create your own, create up here. Here's my suggestion for you: create a Google Sheet with questions and answers. Even if you don't want to create multiple choice answers, just have a question bank and don't save it directly on one of these sites, right? Save it as a Google Sheet, share it with your team, have you all work together to create the question bank. There's a lot of benefits to that. A lot of these sites let you pick a select number of questions. So, let's say you have 40 questions in your bank, but you only want to quiz people on 10. Well, then everybody's getting a random question, which is kind of nice. And then another thing with that is if the site changes, like I was saying on quizzes, you still have it, right? So that's pretty clutch. And a lot of these will let you upload a Google spreadsheet directly to their site, and that will be an easy way for you to upload the questions. A copy and paste also works really well, right? But I'm just saying that's a really good tip. If you like these kind of gaming sites, gaming websites for kids, I would highly recommend if you're going to make your own questions, which I think that's kind of like phase 2. Phase 1, you try them out. Phase 2, you make your own questions. I would absolutely recommend having a separate place for those to live, and then you can upload them to each site. All right. Let's go back to my little document here. Let's see what's next. So quizzes, Kahoot. Both of those have pretty good free versions. You can do a lot of stuff with the free version. I know I mentioned talking about the free version maybe in a blurb somewhere. The next one does not have a good free version. It only lets you use up to 5 kids, and the problem is it's super cool. So only 5 kids per class per assignment. And they have this new thing called Ink. Man, they're not going to let me log on to anything right now. Um, So they're gonna let me try Pro right now. So you can try this one for a month. So to me, I think that's really fun, right? Like try it for a month, let my kids use it a couple times, and I might really love it. I might not, but the thing is, if I have my questions saved as a spreadsheet, or I'm trying to find, a collaboration or something with people, I can search here and find some other ones. Um, Gimkit is really cool because of this. I'm gonna click play live on the one I already have, and I'm gonna show you why it's really cool. They have all these different game modes, right? So it would take, I could do a whole video on Gimkit game modes, which I'm not going to do, but the most popular one is probably like super rich mode, boss battle. You could play one person versus the whole class. This one you get like multipliers and things like that, and the game is driving the entertainment instead of the questions. On the other two, it's really about the questions, right? Like you get these points in the background, and now they're trying to do multipliers and things, but this is the game that really drives the learning, right? So you try to win the game. This is like Among Us. So there's just some really cool games there, right? Uh, so once you pick a game mode, then you can set up the settings and go live, and you can also do it. You saw you could also assign it as homework, which again doesn't mean homework. It just means it's self-paced and students can do it at their own. So center time is great. If you have independent work days, it's a great time for that as well. Unfortunately, this one is super limited on the free version. Stay tuned because there is a pretty good comparison to Gimkit that does a decent job being free. So I like Gimkit a lot. The mechanics are pretty cool. Again, if I were you and you think, well, that sounds interesting, pick one, run it with your kids, let me know how it goes, and then go from there. All right, let's get out of those. Let's go back here. Quizlet. So Quizlet Live is really where we're looking, but Quizlet's basically a flashcard website, right? And it's in its simplest essence, it's a flashcard factory. So you have a set of flashcards. You can create your own or find some. Kids use Quizlet more than me. So I was like learning from kids when I first learned about Quizlet, right? So you can see that I didn't actually make these flashcards. When I click in here into my folder, I can just use all of the Quizlet things, which is cool. But down here, you'll see Quizlet Live. So as a teacher, this is how you launch it. You go to Quizlet Live right here. And there's paid features, but the Quizlet Live for free does pretty good, right? 2-minute video teaches you exactly how it works. Basically, kids are in teams and they're competing. They have to get all the questions right. Let's say there's 40 flashcards. It might only have 8 questions. So everybody's kind of playing a little bit of a different game, but playing against each other, right? So you can play teams or you can play individuals. And then you kind of set up how the questions read. I like definition and term. And then they just go to this website, they type in this code, and the game goes, right? Super easy to get started, which is what I like a lot. There's a few options up here, but not much to do. And you're ready to go. So you find some flashcards you like on Quizlet, or you have students make them on Quizlet. You run Quizlet Live, boom, fun game for them. Completely free. You can do more with Quizlet that's paid. I don't know what it is because Quizlet Live's free. So that's cool. Flippity. I think Flippity is really cool. This is so we're kind of getting into the weeds a little bit more. The next few down here, these 4 up here, they have quizzes, Kahoot, Gimkit, Quizlet. There's a lot of resources out there, and Flippity has some too. But Flippity is basically you have a Google Sheet of information, questions and answers. Like I said earlier, and then you can turn it into all different types of things, right? And all these ones with Google Sheet uploads, they're all going to operate a little bit differently. So that's why I said just make a Google Sheet that makes sense to you. Questions and multiple choice answers, or questions and answers, or however you would make that Google Sheet work for you. And then whenever you go to do something like on Flippity or on quizzes and you want to upload that spreadsheet, you might have to download their template, but you'll see a template somewhere and make your questions fit into that template. But it shouldn't be too bad to get it switched over. So you can see Flippity has all these different things that you can do. You can make flashcards. You can make a quiz show. Pick a name. If you don't like Wheel of Names, you could do Flippity's name picker, right? It's just seemingly unending, right? And so you just click on one of these. It'll tell you exactly how to do it. We're not going to walk through, right? If I wanted to walk through all of these, the video would be like 3 hours long, right? So you kind of get the idea. You can also skip the spreadsheet and you can just create it right here on the site. So Flippity.net, super cool. Um, Big fan. Very cool. All right, Lookit. I couldn't think of a worse name. Like I literally could not think. I don't know who comes up with these names. That name, no bueno. But Lookit is my Gimkit, you know, my Gimkit replacement now. So super easy for kids to join a game on Lookit. You just click right there, or you just send them directly to this link. They put in the ID and they hit play. They put in a name. You kick them out if you don't like the name they put in. I always told kids, like, how can I give the winner anything if I don't know what your name is? And I taught high school and they played along with me, so I appreciated that. Uh, so here's how Lookit looks. Again, you've got a lot of information here. It kind of walks you through when you first start. Most of these sites you can see like stats after the fact and go back and look. Market is not actually like real money; it's like tokens in the game. Um, and then you've got your books, which is your different, basically your different card sets. So let's see here. Um, I'm gonna play this. I like this solo mode. I actually started playing the tower defense game and with the solo mode, and then things kind of got out of hand. I was like, oh my gosh, I should probably actually be doing some work. uh, no, so it's really cool. But let's say I want to host a contest or a game with my kids. This is what I think is amazing. They've got all these different game modes, right? And the only way for you to really know how each game mode works is to play it yourself, right? So I play tower defense because I'm a big balloons tower defense guy. I don't know if anybody can relate to playing balloons, but but that I remember playing that game back in the day, and I was like, man, I got to try this. And this is super fun. The game drives the learning, so you play the game, and then to collect more things in the game, or to increase your strategy in the game or whatever. You have to answer questions correctly, right? And they're usually multiple choice, and it could be just some recall or whatever. But this can really drive some entertainment for some content that maybe isn't as exciting, right? So once you pick, let's say I pick factory here, it'll tell me right over here what this game is designed to be. So speed and strategy. So I'm not a huge speed guy, and a lot of these are speed based. Most games have some speed element to them, right? But if I look here, tower defense is actually strategy and accuracy. So the more accurate you are in your questions and the better you are strategically playing the game, the better you're going to do in tower defense. You can see for each game kind of what they think it plays into for the kids' skills. So it's kind of cool. They also have a classic version that looks a lot like Kahoot. Um, I just think this is super cool. I don't know. You can assign it as homework or you can play it live as a host. So, same thing as a lot of these games. You can upload it as a spreadsheet, it's all free. There's a paid version, but you can do all this stuff that I'm showing you right now for free. So, if we were doing this live, and I had people in, I would probably have made some really horrible quizzes and we would have gone through and played each one of these games. But um, just to give you kind of a brief overview of each one, that's kind of what we're looking at for my favorite, 5 or 6. Um, and then let's jump back over here real quick. You've got a few other things that I want to just kind of make you aware of. Classtools.net. If you've never been on this site, um, this whoever develops the site just keeps building more tools, right? And you'll see a lot of the similar tools as we had on the as we had on Flippity, but some different ones as well. A really cool Facebook template that's fake, a Wikipedia timeline generator. You just put in a Wikipedia term, it gives you a timeline. Like just some really cool stuff that I think maybe you can use with students. And there's some quizzes, there's some games in here, Pac-Man, things like that. But it seems like every month there's a new one of these that you can use. So classtools.net is a good one to just maybe not use now, but bookmark, right? Um, and kind of go through these when you're looking for something fun. These next two, I've never actually built anything on these, but they come up all the time. It seems like when people talk about games. So you can create your own games here. And so, like, on, I don't even know how to say that. EduPlay, EduPlay. I don't know. Educate play. I don't know. That's hard for me. I'm a math teacher. So yeah, you make quizzes, you can make fill in the blank, matching, all these different kinds of games here with whatever content you want to make, right? So again, it's helpful to have the content already made in a spreadsheet or something, and then you just upload to this website. Um, if this is something you're interested in, I would love to know how you use it. And I think it's pretty cool, but I had never heard of it before I took this position, so I've never used it with students. I've never created a game myself. And then the other one's EduCandy. It's basically the same as the one we just looked at, maybe a little bit more primary. I don't know. It looks a little bit more designed for younger kids, right? A few different games here. Again, I don't know how much this applies to student learning in the terms of like let's do this every week, but this could be a fun way to review some terms, or it's really helpful to kind of like there's content we learned in October and we haven't talked about it since October. Maybe I can bring in a few of those uh, terms or some of that content into one of these games while we're learning about our new content as well. A little bit of spiralized learning there. Um, it, it, these it just looks to me these games just look fun, right? Like I would like to play pretty much any of these about any content. So if it's content related to your classroom, it could be a good way to kind of give a little bit of a brain break there. And then the last thing is, if you've never seen Ditch That Textbook, Matt Miller does a great job. He basically does what I do for the district for the entire country as a consultant. So he's way better at it, and he puts out information all the time. So he has in this right here a blog post called The Game Show Classroom, which is really convenient when I was talking about games, right? And he compares the pros and cons for the ones at the top here. Hold on, let me get to the top. Sorry about that. I don't know why it jumped. Kahoot, Quizzes, Quizlet Live, and Gimkit, which are probably the big four in this world. And then he shares some other things as well. So um, his site's worth looking around, even if you just kind of go to the blog or the ideas or the resources right there. You can find a lot of really great information. In the education technology world, he's really great. That's it. My final thought, I just want to leave you with this. Think about how often you want to use things like this. You don't want it to lose its luster, right? Like if you play it every day, it's not that exciting. I can only play Minesweeper so many times before it kind of loses its appeal, in my opinion. So even though I'm choosing to play that game, like at some point it loses its appeal a little bit. So just be careful with that. And then the other thing I want you to think about is like what game is actually impacting student learning. Like, is this just fun and it's a race to the clock to get as many things done as you can as fast as you can, or do you feel like there's actually some student learning going on? There's some reflection going on, and people are actually benefiting from this game. So consider those. Let me know what you think. Post a comment, send me an email, whatever you want to do, and we'll talk soon.